Hello everyone and welcome to Archaeoviking. Today is the second video in my 3-video series for Black History Month. The subject of today's video is the mighty Ghana Empire, West Africa's first true empire. So whenever most of us in the modern Western world hear the name Africa, we tend to think of the literal entire continent of Africa, and even if we were to go a little farther on that, we would tend to think of generally only, say, the savanna of Africa or the rainforest, the jungle of Africa. And if we think of countries, generally African countries that we think of are relegated to, say, countries in North Africa, such as Libya and Egypt, or countries in South Africa, such as, well, South Africa. However, as with literally everything else that in terms of our preconceived images and notions, that's never these preconceived notions are never the full picture. Africa has several very distinct regions with very distinct cultures. And of course, West Africa is no different. West Africa has its own distinct environments, several different environments, in fact, ranging from, like, say, rainforest in the Congo, or savanna, or even parts of the Sahara Desert. And it's also had a variety of unique cultures that grew and evolved within this region over the millennia. Which actually leads me into my next section, because before we look at the Ghana Empire itself, we have to sort of look at the building blocks, the ingredients, if you will. Like when, for example, if we are trying to figure out how to make a specific cake, or figure out how the cake was made, we look at the ingredients. So the building blocks for the Ghana Empire actually go back quite a long time to the Tichitt culture, which is the earliest distinguishable, definable, complex culture in West Africa, going back to about 4000 BCE, located in the country of the modern-day African country of Mauritania, specifically right smack dab in the middle of the southeastern part of Mauritania. And furthermore, the Tichitt cultural sphere, the cultural homeland, is actually, which is numbered here, number 4, is actually smack dab in the middle of what would become the Ghana Empire. With many Tichitt sites, such as Dhar Tichitt, showing a lot of evidence for what would eventually make up, or sort of the characteristics that would make up the Ghana Empire. With many Tichitt sites having very skillfully designed city plans, with these, well, cities might be going a little far, city-state perhaps, or large village at least, but very detailed city plans for the sake of definition, with several skillfully designed neighborhoods, with even these neighborhood clusters, these neighborhoods being divided into clusters of neighborhoods based on, say, social class. So the Tichitt culture, to summarize, was essentially the beginning of urbanization in West Africa. And here's sort of a little graph that you can see here, with the Tichitt culture sort of, as I said, existing roughly from 4000 BCE to around anywhere between 400 BCE to perhaps even 200 CE, give or take. And during the Tichitt culture, West Africa societies in West Africa began to domesticate cattle, as well as began to domesticate millet, specifically pearl millet, in agriculture. First sort of in small scale, then of course over the centuries and millennia on larger and larger scale until between 800 and 400 BCE, agriculture and farming or cattle farming was in full swing in the Tichitt culture, and the Tichitt culture had adopted iron objects or had begun an Iron Age. Because, as I said in my previous video in the series, the societies in Africa below the Sahara Desert actually did not have a Bronze or Copper Age like much of the world, including the Americas, Asia, and Europe. They actually just skipped right to the Iron Age because of iron being much more readily available there. And eventually the Tichitt culture would decline by around, say, 400 BCE, but they probably also, at least in much smaller scale, could be argued to have existed around between 100, still existed by around 100 to 200 CE, give or take. And the ethnic makeup of this region was actually quite diverse because you had various different peoples that roughly fall under the umbrella term of Soninke, the Soninke peoples that you can see here in the orange areas, as well as various Berber and other various ethnic groups existing in the blue area, specifically the Berber cultures. Okay, so now that we have looked at the early forms of urbanization that happened in the Tichitt culture, as well as the ethnic makeup of the region and the adoption of iron during the Tichitt culture in the pre-Ghana period, now it is time to look at the formation of the Ghana Empire itself. So first we're going to look at the early Ghana Empire, which is a period that goes roughly between 300 CE to 800 CE. So the Ghana Empire was founded when the various Soninke and Berber tribes of the region were united under a single city-state, village-state of Ouagadougou. Apologies if I brutalize that name for anybody from West Africa who specializes in the field of West African history who may be watching, but the city of Ouagadougou, or at least that's what the best oral, histories and best reconstruction of sources say. In the modern day, and it formed in the modern day countries of Mauritania, Mali, as well as various other countries here to the south. To put this in perspective, here is a comparison of the modern African country of Mali with the continental United States. And as you can see, Mali is a very large country, taking up at least part of, if not all of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different U.S. states. So a very large region of control. With the general heartland being located around here, around the Niger River and Senegal River valleys, with again the city-state of Ouagadougou, Kaniaga, being the center of this new empire. Now, I will state this map says it's from around 900 to 1000 CE, but throughout the empire's existence, this was the heartland. And after the creation of this new empire of Ghana, the Ouagadougou Kaniaga city-state would create the city of Kombi Saala, as its capital that you can see here. And once this empire was established, the Ghana Empire was in the perfect position to monopolize and take advantage of the pre-existing Sahara Desert trade network that you see here. And this was for a variety of reasons. One, because of before the Ghana Empire had formed, camels had been introduced from the north by Berber tribesmen as well as Roman traders, as well as the fact that the Berber tribesmen themselves were already very skilled middlemen for for city-states and societies south of the Sahara and north of the Sahara. In fact, for much of their history, the Berbers had been even used as mercenaries by various empires in the Mediterranean. They were called the Numidians. So they already had experience in this sort of trade network. And if you remember, many Berber tribes were already part of the what would become the Ghana Empire heartland. And this trade network would allow the Ghana Empire to trade as far north as the Mediterranean and as far east as the Red Sea, and of course as far south as Chad. With trade goods, say from the Mediterranean, being things like glass and ceramics, while the Ghana Empire would trade gold up north. They would get salt from the various tribes in the Sahara Desert. They would get copper from over here around Nigeria, as well as getting ivory and slaves from the Gulf of Guinea, and would send their trade goods in all directions, such as gold, in return for these goods that they would get. And with this, they were able to trade with empires such as the two Roman empires, because of course by the time of the founding of the Ghana Empire, the Roman Empire had split into the Western and Eastern Roman empires. They were also able to eventually trade after the fall of Rome with the kingdom of the Vandals and Alans, which had taken over the North African part of the Mediterranean by 526 CE. They traded, of course, with the Byzantine Empire, which had not fallen, and eventually also took over and conquered the Empire of the Vandals and Alans. And they traded with the Sassanid Empire at least as early as the 620s, though one could argue, considering the Sahara Desert Trade Network reached the Red Sea, that they probably traded with the Sassanid Empire even earlier than that, in the 270s CE and 300s CE. Okay, so now that we've looked at the rise of the Ghana Empire and its the beginning of its monopolization of the Trans-Saharan trade network, now we are going to look at the height as well as the decline of the Ghana Empire. And all of this happened in the late Ghana Empire, which went roughly from 800 CE to 1240 CE. So by the time of 800 CE, the Ghana Empire would expand out and eventually encompass most of northwestern Mali, or the northwestern part of the modern day country of Mali, and most of the southeastern portion of the modern day country of Mauritania. Though, as you can see, as you saw in one of the earlier maps, there's argument that the Ghana Empire actually extended a little bit further south into this region as well. So during this height and this expansion, the Ghana Empire would, of course, begin to exert its influence over other city-states and other cultures. Some just simply through via trade, or others, such as this city that you see here, that I'm not going to attempt to pronounce so that I don't butcher it, like I've already butchered the name of the Ghana capital. Some like this city here would be conquered, just straight out conquered by the Ghana Empire and made members or vassal states, tributary regions of the Ghana Empire. Because that's something I haven't really mentioned, is that the Ghana Empire was sort of, while it was centralized, it was also sort of a confederation as well, which actually many empires throughout the world, including say the Persian Empire, were more like confederations. But either way, the Ghana Empire would begin to expand its influence and would conquer some cities, such as this city right here, that again I'm not going to try to pronounce so that I don't butcher it. But other cultures such as the Jene Jeno and the Gao culture, or the Gao Empire, that we'll talk about in a minute, they would just simply trade with. And of course, during the expansion of the Ghana Empire, the Ghana Empire would go out and conquer and take hold of various gold producing areas for their own monopolization, and therefore making them richer. And with this, this right here is essentially a depiction of the sort of the known world, or the Ghana world sphere as described by Muslim scholars during the 900 CE, with the Ghana hegemonic sphere being located here in the what is labeled the Western Sudan world system, with Ghana over here being one of the major centers, and its tributary areas being these cities around here, and Gao being sort of the other regional center, with its tributary cities being around here. And both of these powerful empires would trade with the various oases city-states that were run by the various desert societies, such as the Berbers, though of course again many Berbers were also part of the Ghana Empire, also with empires and societies on the coast, such as the Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire, etc. And then of course having some contact and trade with people on the western Atlantic part of the Gulf of Guinea. And this here is a map of sort of described again by the Muslim scholars, talking about the various towns and oases and wells that the various Berber and desert tribesmen, as well as the Ghana and Gao empires, set up in the Trans-Saharan trade network. Because of course, if you're going to trade across a desert as vast as the Sahara Desert, you're going to want areas where you can stop and recuperate and refill your water and your supplies, etc. Otherwise, you won't make it and you will probably die. And as with many empires, the Ghana Empire, during this height of imperial expansion, would also see an increase in urbanization. With many cities, such as this one that you see here, that I am not going to attempt to pronounce, so that I don't butcher it any more than I already butchered the capital of the Ghana Empire. And this city here, that again I'm not going to attempt to pronounce, so as I don't butcher it for any more than I've butchered the name of the capital of the Ghana Empire. And with this increase in urbanization, these cities would construct more wells, more storage buildings and storage pits, and of course more houses, more armories, etc. And many of these cities, such as the one that you see here on this diagram, would actually become staging places for large trade caravans to go out and trade with other cultures. This city right here was specifically a staging point for caravans that would lead. This city was located deep in the Mali desert, and was a staging point for trade caravans that would go to the somewhat distant Gao Empire that was located in the easternmost part of the modern-day country of Mali. And much like the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, though not as large and necessarily not as powerful as the Ghana Empire, it still had its own set of large, sophisticated cities and trade centers, as you can see here. And once this trade was conducted, so let me rephrase that. So how this trade would work is, if caravans left closer to home, the Ghana Empire would send caravans to its own tributary states and networks, such as those located on the Senegal River or those in the Bambouk and Bure gold fields, and then would also send their caravans to tributary states located along the edge of, or even somewhat in the Sahara Desert. But those that left for trade with the Gao Empire would reach the Gao Empire and then would be distributed through the Gao Empire's own tributary networks and centers, such as the Sirba Valley gold mines and gold fields, or these right here, again, along the border of the eastern Sahara Desert, or a little bit into the eastern Sahara Desert, and would eventually make their way all the way north to areas such as Egypt and the Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, while the Ghana Empire's trade goods would go all the way north to, the Roman Empire, but also to areas in city-states in the area of the modern-day country of Morocco, as well as the Muslim kingdom of Al-Andalus in modern-day Spain, and both of them would, of course, send trade goods down to the various city-states and cultures on the Gulf of Guinea. And unsurprisingly, as the Ghana Empire and the Gao Empire to a certain degree began to increase in size, so too did the Trans-Saharan trade network. With the trade network now, instead of reaching only to the Red Sea, the trade network now reached as far east as the Horn of Africa, trading with the Swahili city-states that were located in the area, as well as with eventually various Muslim traders from Arabia. Now, it should come as no surprise that the Ghana Empire was not the only empire that was on the rise and expanding during this time. While the Ghana Empire was on the rise and reaching its height, a new empire was beginning to, and it would eventually supplant the Sassanid Persian Empire, and would greatly weaken the Byzantine Empire. And this empire, it was the Muslim Empire of Umayyad, or the Umayyad Caliphate, that would expand from modern-day Arabia and would eventually reach as far west as Spain, or modern-day Spain, and as far east as the border of modern-day India. And of course, as they expanded and took over North Africa, they too would take over the Mediterranean part to a point. The Byzantine Empire still traded, but they would take over most of the Mediterranean part of the Trans-Saharan trade network. And unsurprisingly, as Muslim trade caravans began to make contact with the Ghana Empire, so too Islam itself would begin to enter and diffuse into the Ghana Empire, with with much of the Ghana Empire populace, though not all, adopting Islam. And in fact, during this period, specifically around the 1100s CE, Islam mosques would begin to be constructed in cities such as the capital of the Ghana Empire. Though it's also important to note that Islam did not completely supplant the traditional religion and bureaucratic network of the Ghana Empire. In fact, Islam was throughout pretty much the entirety of the Ghana Empire would remain a minority religion, and that's because unlike Islam, which is patrilineal in descent, the Ghana religions and cultural and bureaucratic systems were based on matrilineal descent, i.e., the lineage was traced from the mothers. Now, it should be clear that it was still a patriarchal society. Ghana was ruled by men, and most of the bureaucrats were men. But rather than it being, say, I'm the king and my son inherits the throne, it's my nephew, my sister's son, or something along those lines. So, of course, this kept Islam from really taking hold in the Ghana Empire in the same way that it had in many of the other parts of its expansion and contact, such as in Spain or in Central Asia. And it is because of this that a conflict may have happened. And that conflict is the proposed invasion of Ghana by the Almoravid Empire, or Almoravid Caliphate. So the Almoravid Caliphate was a successor state to the to the Umayyad Caliphate, because by this point the Umayyad Caliphate had been supplanted by the Abbasid Caliphate. However, the westernmost part of what had once been the Umayyad Caliphate rebuilt itself into the Almoravid city-states and caliphate in West Africa and parts of southern Spain. And according to folklore and oral histories of societies in modern-day Mali and Mauritania, there are stories or histories of the Almoravid or Almohad state, depending on how you want to pronounce it, taking great issue with the refusal of Ghana to convert to Islam, among a variety of reasons, such as the Ghana conquest of several city-states in the Sahara that were Muslim, so it was sort of seen as an act of aggression, or at least according to the proposed oral histories, seen as an act of aggression by the Almoravid state, though whether or not they actually saw it that way or just using it as an excuse to finally invade and forcibly convert this stubborn empire is also up for debate. But according to the oral histories, under this pretense, the Almoravid army would march from North Africa deep into the Ghana Empire and would actually sack the Ghana capital that you see here, Kumbi Saleh. Again, apologies for possibly butchering that. But there's also issues with this. One, the only evidence of this invasion comes from oral histories, which oral histories should not be discounted. They can often be very accurate. But it's also important to note that extensive archaeological excavations and investigations have been conducted into the Ghana Empire and the period of the Ghana Empire, the cultural layer of the Ghana Empire that matches with this time period shows little to no evidence of widespread destruction or anything like that. Like say no burn layers or anything like that that would indicate a Almoravid conquest. Though even archaeologists who doubt a full-scale Almoravid conquest or attempt of conquest do believe that there was still some degree of conflict between the Ghana Empire and the Almoravids, especially when looking at the oral histories, which state that this Almoravid invasion or proposed invasion actually failed, and it was a decade-long affair that saw heavy fighting and actually, again, the sacking of Kumbisele, but no real conquest of the Ghana Empire. The royal elite of the Ghana Empire was able to escape and was able to keep its army intact, and over the course of 10 years was able to defeat and drive out permanently the Almoravids. Whether or not that actually happened, again, is hard to determine because the oral histories back it up, but the archaeological evidence shows very little evidence of that, though it's also important to note that, as I mentioned in the last video, much of the West African archaeological record has been destroyed via looting, so that may be why we don't see it. But either way, whether or not the Almoravid conquest or attempted conquest happened, by this time the Ghana Empire was beginning to decline. And eventually the Ghana Empire would lose much of its former territory as much of the Sonaki and various other tribes, ethnic tribes and ethnic groups, ethnic societies, not tribes, ethnic societies and cultures and such, would begin to divide and break away from the Ghana Empire to create their own sort of city-states, successor states, what have you, until Ghana only had this little region right here called Soso, which was still ruled by the Ghana royal elite by around 1200 CE. And during this time period, it should also be noted that while they had lost much of their territory, eventually the Soso kingdom, what was still technically what was left of the Ghana Empire, actually did make an attempt to expand and retake their empire. And they were pretty successful at first, until they reached the region of this kingdom of Mali right here. And with their reaching of the kingdom of Mali, they came across, essentially, they picked a fight with the wrong person. And that person was the warrior king SUNDIATA KEITA, who united the various Sonaki and Berber tribes in the region of Mali, creating the Kingdom of Mali, and he would defeat Soso in several battles, the Ghana Empire in several battles, and would conquer them and make them part of his newly created Empire of Mali. Much of his success was actually owed to the use of cavalry, such as Berber cavalry. And because of his swift conquest and his ferocity in battle, Sundiata Keita would actually become known as the Lion of Mali, or the Lion King. Yes, it is very possible that he is the inspiration for the Lion King, and also very possibly, if not an inspiration, he is at least a person that one could draw a parallel to, say, the fictional country of Wakanda and the Black Panther rulers, a real historical example of that. And after the conquest of the Empire of Ghana by the Mali Empire and SUNDIATA KEITA, the Mali Empire would actually go on to expand even further than the Ghana Empire, conquering various other city-states and societies such as the Geno, the Geno, and the Gao Empire itself, um, doubling, actually, I would say tripling its size compared to the Ghana Empire, making it a massive empire. Again, remember, Mali itself, the modern day country of Mali itself, uh, is as much as several between 6 to 13 uh, U.S. states, so a very large country. Okay, so with that, that ends our tale of West Africa's first true empire and how it rose to power and for around 1,000 years monopolized and controlled the Trans-Saharan trade network due to its control of various gold producing areas. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you want to see me cover any other subject that I mentioned in the video in greater detail, as always, remember to leave a comment in the comment section. I hope you enjoyed the video, and remember to like, share, and subscribe.